Hello and welcome to another episode of Casual Friday. I'm here with the Duck, and I think, not to jinx it, Don, but we may have broken an important curse that Altcoin Thursday was yesterday, and the market isn't entirely red. So I think that's an important form of progress.
I mean, it's the most bullish thing I've ever heard.
Yeah, forget the banks going down, forget the Bitcoin breakout, Bitcoin dominance, all of that is irrelevant compared to the Altcoin Thursday curse, right?
Yeah. I mean, how crazy is it that we just had like one tiny red candle on the daily and people were so fucking bearish. And now we had two green candles and everyone's just like losing their shit. It's so funny.
Well, it was really the irony is it was on the green candle that a lot of the bearishness came in, right? It was on the SFP candle, if anything,
Oh,
where,
yeah,
where
yeah. And
most
then,
of those
but the
views were
next day too.
expressed. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I understand it from like a strictly technical perspective. If your eyebrow was raised at a range high spike, like I get it. But the whole point, as we've discussed before, of an SFP is that you want to see evidence of trapped traders exiting their positions aggressively, and so the market really shouldn't be hanging around levels where the SFP took place, right? Because the whole idea is if those breakout buyers are trapped, then as they close their positions, the market moves against them and it creates kind of a one-sided demand for liquidity from those positions puking and also aggressive traders piling in on top of that sort of trap delta, and that's what gives you the unwind. But if you have an SFP that doesn't do anything, then it's probably not the best trap trader setup if no one's trapped, right? Um,
Yeah.
that's the way we think about it,
So,
at least. Also, on another note, I feel that you're too kind of German and humble to get the point across properly. But I do think a form of public congratulations is in order for how you traded this move. It's nice to have at least one real trader on the channel. But it's also just very public from 16K. It got sold 25. It got a bit scary when you rebought. I'm sure you felt that, although you made the most of that and even shilled the USDC trade on stream and on
yes.
Twitter, which is really impressive. And now at 27, it must feel pretty good. So I want to, as your co-host and interviewer, I want to give you some credit and also hope that you continue not to realize the dead weight I am on this channel, so we can keep it running. So
Jesus Christ.
congratulations.
That got depressing really
I
fast.
had to. I had to.
No, but it's been good. Yeah, I mean, it's been a little bit of a tough week because there's been so much opportunity
Mm-hmm.
that I've just not been getting to sleep. So I'm like, this is gonna be the first day where I get a proper night of sleep, I think. Um, but yeah, it's been good, and I did feel the heat at 20K. Like when we dipped, and I was like, this is the last support that we really have on the monthly. I'm as deployed as I can be. I even bought more into that monthly block. I was like, I mean, this is kind of scary for a little bit. Um, but then the moment we kind of got the whole like banking story, it just seemed quite clear like that is the most bullish thing that can happen to crypto, not in the short term not necessarily, even though it did play out that way, but it's like this is the best narrative you can have, right? And that's always gonna, I think, lead to buying in general. So at that point I was like, okay, I can just as long as this is like not leverage, I can just buy as much as I want because this is gonna be higher. And then I did, especially with like the USDC trade in between. That was very, very nice, like a free 10% on everything basically. That I put into it was a good week, but I'm excited for it to be over, honestly.
You can't say that. Some people are just starting to buy, Don.
I mean, this still looks really, really good,
Right.
right? When we're gonna go through the time frames, like
Yes.
just take a peek on the monthly, and this is the whole story that you need, right? We
Yes.
had a massive wick into monthly support. We completely obliterated monthly resistance, and there's zero resistance from where we are all the way up to 35K, and that's quite exciting to see. And with back to back to back to back, basically 10% daily
Yeah,
candles,
it's crazy.
um, it very much feels and looks like Bitcoin's just back, because this is not like, this is a very, very strong rally. And usually when you get these strong rallies, it just means that you get a new trend in in crypto, at least. So I'm hoping and I'm betting on a new trend. I kind of like, I was targeting 35K to kind of sell a bunch, I removed all of my sell orders basically because I think this
They're at
could go higher.
27K now. No, that makes
No,
sense.
no.
What, the whole banking narrative, one curious way to think about it is how bearish would it be if Bitcoin didn't pump on the
Yeah, I
the
mean,
banking
just be
sector
over. Like
melting
that's the
down?
thing.
That would be so embarrassing almost. Like it would be it'd be really pathetic and sort of existentially challenging, It's born
I
out of the great
literally think.
financial crisis, and then if it just dumped like tech stocks, then I don't know, man. It's like, what are we doing here,
Yeah, I think literally if it dumped, you could have just been like, okay, this thing is just like, I mean, why would anyone ever buy this?
Yeah.
So it was kind of like this thing where you had this do or die thing, and you got that at monthly support, and you got it with a clear kind of, yeah, clear cut narrative. So I'm not surprised. I'm surprised by the volatility and how strong it's
Well,
been,
me too,
but
brother. Trust me.
but
Yeah,
I'm happy with it, and it looks really really good.
yeah, for sure. We're about to do our our time frame overview. I just kind of wish I was better at LARPing at least. Like, if I'm gonna fuck up the execution, I wish my LARPing execution were better because I was banging the drum as far as monthly support goes for like the longest time ever. And then by the time it plays out, it would have been quite easy to do some hindsight TA clout collection. But like an idiot, I went out there and was transparent about some execution trade management issues, and that's just not the way to run a Twitter account or a YouTube channel in this day and age, Don. So something
Very
for me
much
to
not,
improve
no.
on. So I mean, if we do our time frame overview, so on the monthly, as you
Mhm.
mentioned, it's like, well, 20K is that support. I mean, what more do you want? Realistically, right? That's like
Yeah.
amazing bounce, so on and so forth. Contextually, technically fine. The monthly range high isn't looking much like resistance at the moment. I think it's fair to say, unless something quite catastrophic happens over the next 2 weeks. It just looks like a monthly breakout that's pending, right?
Yes.
It would need to be something, I think, really quite extraordinary to close the monthly back below resistance, and that would be one of the ugliest candles ever. Like, straight up, if this monthly turns red, I'm not a huge fan of it for obvious
No.
reasons. But all else aside, and we'll revisit it in a couple of weeks, and we'll also talk about some faster moving timeframes on the weekly and the daily. I think I agree that as far as monthly levels go, as long as the close is above resistance or somewhere around here, I think the way to interpret that is a breakout from a multi-month range to fill in a large sort of void of selling. And if you have conviction in monthly levels, which I think there's a large base of evidence to support that view, your next kind of candle body sort of thick monthly level is the lowest close of the sort of all-time high range at 35K.
Yeah.
You can probably get into some fucky wick territory, starting from like the high 20s, 30K. But in terms of just like larger monthly rotations, sort of body to body, 35K is the trend breakout first trouble area. Anything you want to add on the monthly time frame?
No, not really. I think that's like the most reasonable resistance to kind of look at.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I'll see how price reacts. Basically, I had like sell orders there.
Yeah.
Um, I removed them because I want to see how price reacts if we get there, or once we get there. I'm not guaranteeing that we're gonna go there, but it looks really really good. It hasn't looked this good in a long time, because let's be real, right? When you look at the time, like the chart, we haven't had any bullishness since the all-time high on the
Yes.
monthly.
Yes.
It's been a complete shit show. Every resistance did its job. There was really no bounce whatsoever.
Yeah.
And technically speaking, if this monthly closes above resistance, that's actually just the confirmation of the breakout, like the first kind of bullish signal. And I think that could run for a little bit. Usually monthly signals run for longer than like a candle or two, but they just keep on going. But yeah, I don't want to jinx it yet, so I'm just gonna say 35K resistance, and then if that breaks, I don't think you want to sell before a new all-time high. But we still have to kind of get there and do some bullish price
Some
action
soul
there, and then
searching.
oh yeah, because it's hard to hold, right? Like that's the thing at the end of the day, and I get this. It's really hard to hold for a couple of months. I bought 16K. I've been sitting here for 4 months now, holding this, and yeah, sometimes I'm just like, I'm sitting there, I'm like, this would be nice. Like, this would be nice to book some profit on this position because
Mhm.
it's been running quite hard, right? It's up a lot from 16K. That's like, what is it now? Like, it's 70%. That's a really good trade, but it's only 4 candles at the end of the day. And if that was any other time frame, 4 candles into a trade isn't really anything significant, right? If you're trading the 1 hourly and you're just like, okay, I'm gonna take this trade and I want to close it in 4 hours, it's not necessarily something you do, right? You kind of look forward for like the next 10 hours maybe. And then if you trade the 5 minute chart, you're gonna look for, okay, how is the next hour gonna trade? So it's more than just 4 candles usually. And so I'm just gonna stick around
Yeah.
and kind of see how this develops.
That makes sense. As far as 1 minute scalping goes, Don, the monthly wick at 26.7k, good FUD or bad FUD? Is this a trouble
uh,
area? Are the lights about to be turned off?
nah, I don't think
It's forbidden hidden resistance.
it's. I'll, I'll take it. I don't like anything besides like
Sure.
35K on the
Yeah.
monthly.
I mean, the candle bodies are what we generally use to find the clearer levels, and that tends to give
Yes.
pretty good signals. So yeah, that's what we have on the monthly. Bounced where it should have. The narrative was good, unless the monthly closes red, which would be quite catastrophic. It would cement a monthly time frame breakout. That has space both in terms of expectations given preceding sort of range bound environment, and also in terms of where the next candle body structure is at 35k, and that's sort of
Yep.
the monthly view. The weekly, that's sort of finally starting to complement that view. 2 days left until the weekly close, and it looks like the weekly range high at 24.3k, again, unless it gets nuked into the weekend, that looks like a breakout candle as well. Is
Yep.
there, and the good thing is, like, it gives you a very nice invalidation too, because the level was so good that if you get a weekly close back below 24k, it's fucked, right? I
Yeah.
think we discussed this at length, that we essentially have still used the range towards the end of last year, where we had the range low at 19k and the range high at 24k, and the deviation and the reclaim of the range low gave a big move, and so for some reason the failed breakout happens on the other side, so back below 24. So basically, the argument I'm trying to make is back above 19 was a big deal because it's a weekly deviation, and so back below 24 would also be a big deal. It's the same weekly deviation, just in the other direction. Do you think that provides a useful sort of update in validation for anyone betting on a shift from range bound to trending conditions?
Yes, I think that's very valid. I mean, right now I'm kind of like looking at 20K. Like if we go anywhere close to that, I'd want to get out. But I think if we get it close below 24, I'm probably gonna get out
Yeah.
too. So it's not only like, I think it's very valid because we've had a massive rally, and that seems like a really good line in the sand.
Yes.
Like this breakout has to stick, and I think it will stick. But if it doesn't,
Oh boy.
a lot of people are gonna be offside, because I think there's gonna be a lot of panic buying in the next few weeks, because a lot of people, especially like if you just look on Twitter, right? A lot of people have been completely offside on this, and the more this goes up, because now we have a new narrative, right? The more it goes up, the more people are going to be like, wait, this is actually what Bitcoin was made for. Like, why do I not hold this? And that can drive a lot of FOMO, especially in the people that still have stable coins that still sit on the sidelines, kind of wondering what they should be doing. So the FOMO rally is back on, which is quite nice because I was like a little bit concerned that this would break the whole structure of this thing, but we got a new narrative which puts it back on the table, and yeah, fill the free AC gap. We're almost.
It's
I'm
back. It's
cursing it.
back. Yeah.
I'm cursing it,
Yeah, so
but
what is weekly resistance? Is it the same monthly sort of? I mean, 35 exists on the weekly, but you start getting into some candle bodies a bit earlier, maybe towards like some of those summer range wicks at 30, or the tiny green retest candle around the round number. So does the weekly structure give any changes as to where you think the first trouble area is, or are you going to kind of ignore the weekly because you think the monthly magnet, to borrow from crypto Twitter, is a good enough meme?
I think I think the monthly is the best, but I do like 33K ish, like 33, 34. That previous range low is
Yeah, yeah,
very,
yeah.
very clear on the on the weekly.
Got it.
So I think if you're absolutely looking for a sell and it goes there, that's a decent area. And then I mean, it doesn't have to hit monthly levels straight away, right? It could go close to it, get rejected by weekly resistance, drop back down to 27, and then go at it again.
Mm-hmm.
Stuff like that happens all the time when you get like a rejection just before a big level on a high time frame, and then you have like a week pullback or 2 weeks into just another push into that monthly resistance, and then it actually shows whether it wants
Yeah.
to go up or not.
Makes sense. That actually prompts an interesting question. If this thing starts to either consolidate or pull back in the mid to high 20s, how
Mhm.
would you interpret that? Do you think that's a good way to get positioned, or to add, or to kind of treat that as a breakout trade or anything of that nature? Because you mentioned a large
Honest,
contingent of sideline traders. So for them, if they start seeing this thing slow down, or even on the daily print some red candles go sideways, do you think that's a valid entry criterion?
yeah, I think it is. I would trade it terribly. That's why I bought.
Hey, that's my
That's why I
job,
bought.
dude. Gotta
The
let me
thing
have
is, like,
something.
the reason why I bought like 16K and the reason why I bought more 20K was because that's an obvious pain level, right? And that's low, basically buying low. And the moment, I mean, now it's broken out, and now it's really hard to buy it because if you buy it and this is false breakout, you get completely shit on. Um, so I tend to try to buy low, as stupid as that
No,
sounds.
makes sense.
I tend to try to buy when it looks really, really shitty, and sometimes I lose that trade and I lose a little bit. But it's easy, like when everything looks like shit, it's easy to let go of a trade because then if it goes against you, like, okay, I'm just wrong. Like this market's been shit anyway. I'm just wrong. I'm gonna get out. But let's say you buy right now at 26.8K, right? You buy it and then you're like, okay, I think this is gonna go to 35K, and it pulls back to 24. You can still tell yourself like 24K is really good support, right? Um, and then it breaks below 24K and you're like, oh, this is just a weekly wick, and then or like it's just a daily wick, and then it closes the daily below 24K and you're like, oh, it's just a weekly wick, and then next thing you know, you're trading at 20K, you bought 27, and that's how you get wrecked,
Right.
right? So that's why I technically like it's easier for me to one get into positions and two just also just let go of positions when it looks completely hideous rather than trading it when it just goes up. But there's a few people that can trade this really well when it breaks out, so it's just not me. And I've seen obviously you see a lot of people also talk about buying the breakout and then they just disappear and not talk about that buy ever again on Twitter. It's also something that happens.
Right.
I think breakout trading is great if you can do it really well, but it takes a really good trader and it takes someone that's specialized in it. And I think in general, it's just not for me.
I think so too. I think breakout trading is harder than it seems.
Yeah,
Because it sounds straightforward. Like it goes up, you buy it, it goes higher. But there are nuances attached to it, especially on a high time
yeah,
frame point of view, where those pullbacks or consolidations may be a matter of days, right? And in some cases, or even weeks. So imagine you're approaching a trade with a breakout idea that your invalidation should be close by and you want to see momentum. But the gauge for measuring that is a matter of days and weeks. Well, your intuition tells you that it should be quicker because it's a momentum trade. It gets pretty murky. But I agree with everything you said there. In general, just to address the point of sort of, I don't want to trade the mid to high 20s or whatever because I feel like I've missed the move. I can completely understand the reasoning there, but I have 2 points to say. One is that the price is the price, right? Like you're not trading the market that it was a week ago or 2 weeks ago or at the bottom or whatever else. You're supposed to trade what's in front of you and sort of address the market that's there, not the market that you want or would have wanted. And the second point is sort of more contextually, if it is really the case that we're moving from like a 8 month period, 6-8 month consolidation breakout into a trending environment, then if that's valid, then you expect the trending environment to like last some meaningful period of time, right? Or at the very least for that rotation to be large enough given the length of the preceding consolidation. So if you're sort of using the bottom as a metric, as to, oh my god, look how much I've missed, then you could end up in paralysis analysis. But if you sort of take a fresh view and say that we're on the cusp of a monthly breakout, it really looks like we're getting a weekly breakout. I have an invalidation sort of below 24.3k, and I think there are higher time frame targets that make sense. There's still a decent, that sort of portion of the trade where the market moves from range bound conditions to trending conditions. There's still money to be made in that period, even if it is sort of slightly trickier. So I wouldn't feel too disgruntled there in general.
Yeah, I think in general, like breakout trading, you can do if you have a really good invalidation, which we do have in this case.
Yes.
So
Okay.
it's a little bit easier. The coolest thing like about trading stuff like this when you have a position already is that you can trade around your position. You can because oftentimes it's quite obvious that you're going to get like a little bit of a pullback, and then you can take some profit on parts of your position and then add them back lower. It's going to make holding easier basically. When you don't have a position, you're just sitting there hoping that it goes down where it's clearly trending, right? And right now it is clearly trending in my eyes. It's like we haven't had this strong moves in a long time. So fading that doesn't really make any sense to me. I've seen a lot of people post about the SFP. And I was like, I just don't see it, right? Because you have the banking narrative, and you're all the way back at a level that should have been the top. And then you have to be very critical about like which kind of levels you short. If we do like if you get an SFP above 32k, above that old consolidation on the left side of the move, I mean, I'm down, right? This is an untested level. You can do whatever you want. Like if you kind of spike into 32, 33, 34 into a level that's not been tested, it's one thing. But if you then do it again on the second test, I think that's stupid. So like you have to be very, very selective right now, I think, on the short side, because um, all you've been doing basically, if you're shorting, has been just giving money to the bulls, which I mean, I'm not complaining. It's quite nice getting getting people to buy
Fair
higher,
enough.
and filling out positions. It's nice, but it's obviously not what you should be doing, I think.
Yeah. So I think on the weekly, it's fair to summarize in the following way: yes, pending the weekly close, etc. But there's evidence of a breakout. In those conditions, if you want to be bearish, you either do so at fresh, untested levels of resistance higher up, which are in the 30s, or you do it if the breakout fails, which would be below 24. And for the
Yep.
bearish side, anything in between, you're just fading what could be the first leg of a large shift in conditions, and that's not as attractive as selling fresh resistance or selling the failed break. And on the bullish side, you're basically hoping for some sort of look. I think a pullback straight away to 24.3 would kind of make me shit myself, to be honest with you. Like if you get a breakout
Mm,
candle and straight away it starts coming back, I wouldn't feel too good about that. So I think realistically, if this is going to be a kind of strong trend forming breakout, your better hopes are engaging with the chart and the market on lower time frames and hoping for like a multi-day, potentially couple of week consolidation to sort of let you in and give you some sort of structure before a push to those aforementioned resistance levels. Do you think that's fair?
yeah, that's very fair. I generally don't think like 24 immediately would be quite bad unless it's just a wick, like
Right.
an immediate wick to 24, that just immediately like goes green again
Like
on the
within
weekly,
one or
for
two days,
example.
right? Sort of very quickly.
Yeah, yeah. Like
Okay.
let's say we close the weekly like we have it right now.
Yeah.
We go sideways for 2 weeks, 2 days in the next week, and then we have like a nuke that gets immediately bought back up. That's okay, right?
Yeah.
But if you start like grinding down and then grinding down towards 24k, that would look really, really bad. I agree,
Sure.
because then uh, we've been spending too much time at 24k. There's been too many people trapped right now below 24k in shitty positions that I don't think we should go anywhere close to that unless it's a sharp wick, and that shouldn't happen this week.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. And there's nice confluence in the 30s anyway, as far as larger breakouts go, both on the weekly and the
Yes.
monthly, etc. I mean, realistically, the key levels and the clear levels at the moment, absent that daily range forming, are 24 and 30-ish. Do you agree?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Sweet. And I think we need to add much color on the daily time frame, right? It's essentially the same thing. Your kind of 3AC gap cluster first level resistance. I think you could make a case that it's as early as sort of 28.5 ish. You know, the lower
Hmm.
bound of that daily consolidation. I mean, it's kind of the same thing, but maybe worth outlining. Basically, that pre 3AC nuke between 28 as the range low and 32 as the range high, that kind of daily cluster is contextually important. And then, as we mentioned on the daily, the most acceptable form of something constructive would be almost like a flash crashy type of thing that gets bid up very aggressively. Similar to our weekly observation, anything, well, anything below 24K on any time frame, any acceptance there would be a red flag, I think.
Yeah.
Cool.
Well said.
Anything else to add for BTC?
No, I think it's pretty
Just send
straightforward,
it.
really.
I'm guessing
Yeah.
is your
I just look at the daily chart. Like,
yeah.
I wouldn't even be surprised if we just get another 10% daily tomorrow.
Send it to your non-existent sell orders, Don. Let's
Yeah, I mean, I might put them back up, and then I think there's probably gonna be a trade around 35, 34, 33K. Um, it's just I'm terrified, honestly, of giving up positions right now because I feel like, and I mean, has been the case for anyone that hasn't been in a position, that it's going to be really hard to get back into them.
right.
So, and it's something that I've been saying, like, I just want to hold on to stuff as long as I'm able to. Like, as long as I have any reason to hold on to it, I will. And that remains the case. Like, I just want to hold stuff. And if it goes poorly, it goes poorly. But at this point, it's up so much from where I bought them that even if it goes poorly, this is going to be like a 30, 40, 50% gain. Um, which in a bear market, I mean, I'm more than down to kind of just get. And if this is the bottom, basically, of the whole thing, because I still think, and I've been saying this on this show, even when we dipped towards 20K, if you remember, I was like, I still think 16K is the bottom, and I still think that. Like, I don't think we're gonna go back below 16K. Um, so that's not too far away from current price, all things considered, right? When you think about that Bitcoin just goes casually from 0 to 20K, and then from 20K to 3K, and from 3K to 60K, 16K isn't really like so far away from 26K. So I'm just going to hold on. I think it makes sense cyclically to kind of assume that the bottom's in. And then if you get trades, if you get kind of like pullbacks, all that kind of stuff, can take advantage of it. But I'm gonna assume, like, my trading has been centered around the bottom being in, and it's been doing me really, really good. So I'm pretty convinced.
Makes
And
sense.
we'll
Makes
just see how
sense.
it goes.
Also, stop lying, Don. Clearly, the only reason you're so desperate to stay in this position is because your winning trades are so far and few between that this feeling is just so overwhelming, and you don't want to let it go no matter what. That's clearly what's going on.
I mean,
The
obviously.
irony of me saying that of all people, but we're just gonna gloss past that small detail. So that's BTC. Hopefully, it was constructive enough. Technical roundup. Also, like our newsletter will be out on Tuesday next week. I mean, Monday markets. Who cares at this point? But the TR letter wrote about the breakout and potential implications. So keep an eye out for that one. As far as ETH goes, so an interesting dynamic that we've both spoken about on our respective shows is that this is about as Bitcoin centered. It's been a while, dude. You know, to get the colloquial part out of the way. It really feels like it's been a while since we've seen a proper BTC ripper kind of dominant rally where you see an ETH BTC break in market structure, liquidity vacuum, and alts really underperform. At least the big ones across the board. I almost felt like this market phenomenon has been phased out to some extent. But if there's ever a narrative to bring it back, it was it's essentially the one we've had so far. So this is quite cool to see, and I'm sure it's unfamiliar to many participants. But for us back in the day, this used to be very bread and butter. So ETH BTC breaking down, struggling to keep up, understandably, and ETH
Mhm.
USD far less compelling on the breakout front so far. So
Yeah.
what do you make of this dynamic?
So I think first we can talk about ETH BTC, because that's starting to turn interesting now. We're finally testing the support that I've been outlining for quite a while, which is 0.066, and it's not holding so far. And this is on the weekly time frame. Um, it's not holding, and I've been saying that I'm not sure which one I really wanna give a go at, if it's gonna be 0.066 or 0.055, and I like 0.055 a lot more now, especially given that this narrative is entirely Bitcoin centric. So I think you could just get ETH BTC to go down these like 13, 14, 15% to 0.055 um, off of Bitcoin strength, right? I mean, Bitcoin could easily go up like 20, 25, 30% from here, I think. And that could easily lead ETH to just underperform, still go up in USD, but go towards that lower support. And I think that's the support that's going to be really, really interesting. So I'm more than down to shift Bitcoin into ETH. I still have ETH because there's a chance I'm just wrong and it's just not going to go there. And I'd rather have a position that I can add to than not have a position at all, especially if that position appreciates in USD value. Like it's not going to get me too stressed. But I think there's a good chance 0.066 breaks and we go to 0.055, and that's going to be where the trade is. Best part about it is that if you break 0.066 properly, that's going to be an invalidation, right? Like coming back above it is going to be bearish invalidation. So that's kind of like a breakout that you can buy. So that makes it quite simple on that front. And but yeah, I still think ETH BTC looks great, all things considered. Just great on a big time frame, and I think that big time frame could take a while to play out. So I want to have ETH. I want to shift pretty much all my Bitcoin into ETH eventually, but not right now. I want to be exposed to the large majority of the rally, and I think that's going to be first Bitcoin centric, and then it's going to shift into altcoins very much like it has been in the past. It's not like we've been used to, like you said. Which I think is quite bullish. Like Bitcoin just running on its own, that's always been a good precursor of a really good move. Whenever you get Bitcoin and everything else running, especially when the altcoins massively outperform Bitcoin, that usually sucks liquidity out of Bitcoin. And when Bitcoin loses liquidity, you get down moves. So as long as Bitcoin sucks out liquidity out of everything else, there's much less danger of just the bottom falling out. So I'm not hating on this. I like it. I think ETH BTC is probably still going to underperform for a while, but there's going to be a trade there, most definitely.
Yeah, it's quite nice to see sort of recurring features of market structure that you and I are used to but haven't seen in a while, as a sort of kind reminder that the rules haven't changed all too much. So I welcome that, and I agree with your ETH BTC setups and levels as well. It would be really nice if it gets that range low on the back of BTC strength. That'd be cool.
Yeah.
It's just positive for everything, I think. And then the rotation also becomes clear, right? From just pretty much standard risk curve walk down BTC ETH alts type of thing. So all of that would be very welcome. As far as ETH USD goes, what do you think
Mhm.
of this thing? So obviously it's not as, the breakout isn't as obvious as it is on BTC, given it's been underperforming. But on the weekly, it's trying to push through the top of the last consolidation. On the monthly, it also trying to push above 1700. I mean, daily is currently poking above that absolute clusterfuck, which is the
Yeah.
highs in February. So, do you think, is it the case that, given how clear and dominant Bitcoin is, you're not interested in ETH until either ETH BTC hits support lower down or it reclaims the current breakdown? Or basically just passage of time, one way or another? Is
Yeah,
that fair?
I think it's basically like you have to reclaim supports on ETH BTC, and I wouldn't even necessarily trust them too much. If they don't have like, I think ETH BTC needs to move lower for me to trust like a reclaim of the 0.066 level that we've been talking about. But I like ETH USD. If you just gave me the ETH USD chart on its own, I think that's gonna go up. And that's like a really, really good thing, because if ETHUSD looks like it's going to go up, if Bitcoin looks like it's going to go up, and if BTC looks like it's going to go down, that just shows me how much strength there is in Bitcoin. And I mean, eventually this stuff will catch on. Like I think catch up at least a little bit on the altcoin front. So it's just a positive development in general. And if USD breaks out, maybe we get a little bit of a rally on ETH BTC. But I think as long as Bitcoin is rallying this strongly, you're probably not going to see altcoin strength. It's going to be mostly Bitcoin specific.
Yeah, that sort
And
of led me to the next question, right? Which is, and I'm sure you're about to cover this, but as far as altcoins go, like one of the dynamics I was discussing on yesterday's Altcoin Thursdays, which it was the following: like, are you kind of screwed if you're trading altcoins no matter what happens directionally? So if the market continues to go higher, there's a decent likelihood that it's going to be on the back of Bitcoin strength, and so alt BTC pairs are going to bleed, and we also see that reflected to some extent in alt USD. Even if it's not bleeding, it's underperformance. But then if the
yeah,
market nukes and it's a trap, well, then you definitely don't want to be in altcoins because that's going to be a very ugly unwind. So it's like regardless of sort of the direction of the volatility, it doesn't. It's not immediately obvious to me why you would rotate into altcoins at this exact juncture. What
yeah,
do you make of that?
I kind of agree. Like if you only have altcoins, it's a really shitty situation to be in because crypto went up a lot, but your altcoins, like Bitcoin, is making new highs. If you look on a daily time frame, right? Um, we broke 25K convincingly, and it's now trading at 27K. And you look at ETH, and ETH has been the altcoin that's been performed the best, and that's trading exactly at the level where it was before. And then you look at any of the other altcoins on the USD pair, and they're all trading much lower than they were trading at when Bitcoin was last at 25K. Like they've been underperforming
That's
massively.
actually a massive difference. Yeah, I'm just
Yeah,
clicking
and
through a few now. It looks a lot worse than I thought it would, to be honest.
yeah, and even the USD pairs don't look that great on the altcoins. So you're in this shit situation where everyone's celebrating the Bitcoin's high. You've been bullish, but you've been bullish the wrong thing, and now you're wondering like, hey, is this actually gonna fix itself? Because like if Bitcoin goes to 30K and this continues, right, and your altcoin is still below the high that Bitcoin had at 25K, well, Bitcoin's going to pull back eventually. And then you have to worry about like, okay, Bitcoin went up so much, it can pull back like 20% easily. What is going to happen to my altcoin? And the answer is it's probably going to dump quite hard. So it's a shit situation to be in. It's also kind of shitty to rotate out of them now because they're down so much. But I don't know. This is why, like, whenever I'm bullish, Bitcoin, I want to actually own Bitcoin because I've seen a lot of people. They're like, I'm just gonna like Bitcoin's bullish. I'm just gonna buy these altcoins, and that can bite you in the ass. And I think the people that have been doing that have kind of realized that in the last few days. Um, so you want to own some Bitcoin, especially like I think it should be like the biggest position in general. When you're Bitcoin, like when you're bullish Bitcoin, your biggest position should be Bitcoin. Um, and I think the moment Bitcoin tops and has done its dump, then you're gonna see some altcoin outperformance. Um, or if you just see a massive influx of retail, which we haven't really. They're preoccupied with the banks going bankrupt right now. They're gambling their last money on on puts in the banking sector. So I think that's going to take a little bit. It might not take too long. If Bitcoin goes to 40K, you're going to see a large influx again of people that are just willing to buy like Shiba Inu, not necessarily that coin, but like garbage like it. Um, but so far, that's not been happening. So underperformance it is. And I don't really have any good advice for people that are all in altcoins because technically they're up in USD. They're up tiny in USD in comparison to what Bitcoin's doing. Um, and I just don't have good advice. It's a really tough position to be in. It's that in general, like sometimes I see people do stuff where I'm like, I actually don't know what to say to you because you put yourself in such a shitty situation that I just don't know. Like I just cannot give good
It's like
advice.
every
And
conversation we have ever.
yeah, but it's an odd one. I don't know if you have this, but like sometimes people come to me with like questions. I'm like, dude, like even if I knew where this market was gonna go, 100%, like you put yourself in such a shit situation. I actually don't
uh,
know what. And this is like one of them where it's
yeah.
really hard.
Mine is like, I don't know what I'm doing. You think I can tell you what to do? You're insane. Like, how does that make any sense? Um, cool. Fine. I think that about covers it. I'm going to ask you about something hilarious, and you're going to think it's so relevant that you might laugh at me. But the S&P 500, Don.
Oh,
Back in the
you're such
day,
a
the
boomer.
macro correlation. Yeah. Return to tradition. Okay. I guess the first question before the technicals: what would have to happen to this thing, if anything, for you to care about it? Or are you mentally at this point where it's like trend forming momentum in BTC, narrative in BTC, strong enough to decouple in BTC that I don't care what the S&P does, unless it goes like 10 days limit down in a row type of thing?
I mean, we're just trading gold now. And get with the times, brother. No, I think actually, you look at the gold chart now, and that's going to give relatively good guidance, I think, because the narrative has shifted from basically a risk asset to something akin to gold. So I think that's going to be the chart that's going to be more interesting to watch. But I think if the S&P like proper breaks down, just to kind of get back on topic, uh, you want to see the monthly support hold, which is 3.7k ish. Uh, if we break that to the downside, I would start getting worried, because I think at the end of the day, crypto is still a risk asset, and if it's gonna be trading like gold, as long as we're not completely melting down, kind of breaking everything. If we break the banks more than we have, there's actually a good chance that we would see a dip, I think, before it goes higher. The same with the S&P. If this breaks down properly, we're going to be in a little bit of trouble. So, but I think the high time frames have to go poorly for this thing to matter, rather than the lower time frames. Like the daily on the S&P is not going to have the biggest impact on Bitcoin. I mean, just look at it today, right? The S&P is down quite a bit, and Bitcoin is up quite a bit. And then you look at gold, and gold is up quite a bit. I think it's fair to say that we've shifted a little bit, which is a good thing. Um, and this is kind of a neat thing about Bitcoin in general, that it can be a risk asset. And if risk assets go up, we can kind of mold it into like, hey, risk assets are gonna go are going up. Bitcoin has to. And then the moment like gold rallies, which is very much not a risk asset, we're like, we actually like gold. Like, so you can kind of shift it around, and the narratives kind of fit on almost everything. So that's a quite neat property to have,
Yeah.
being both a safe haven and a risk asset at the same time. It's
Yeah.
like, yeah,
Narrative malleability depending on convenience and what suits us most. It's not a terrible thing.
exactly.
Gold is quite close to an all-time high, as
Yep.
I'm sure you've noticed. I'm looking on the monthly. How delusional would it be to say that it's the monthly range high and we're at resistance? Sort of how how many psychiatric evaluations would you force me to undergo if I made that argument? Sort of 2%
I
from the
mean,
all-time high, saying it's at resistance. What do you think?
I think it's actually, you'd have to really go to the doctor. No, the reason why I'm saying this is because it's tested this resistance so many times, and the gold people have, I mean, they're gonna lose their marbles if this is gonna be smacked down again. Um, I think it's gonna make a new all-time high.
So you're rooting for
Uh,
Peter
ju-
Schiff, essentially, Don.
I mean, I think gold's so stupid. Like, every time I say this, like, people are very angry in the comments, and I fucking love it. Makes
Yeah.
me laugh every time. But I think gold's so stupid. It just makes no sense to me. Um, I don't like, the thing is, like, I don't even like the gold. Like, Bitcoin is the gold alternative thing. I use it because, I mean, it's nice when I can use it as like a bullish thing, but
Yes.
I just don't like pet rocks that lie around doing nothing. Just not a fan. But I think it's going to make a new all-time high, just because these highs have been tested too many times, and the narrative for gold is very strong as well, which is good for us, because we do have the same narrative basically, and we have on top that that whole, like, Bitcoin is a movement, that is a big middle finger to the banks, and the banks are kind of like doing a bunch of bullshit again. So it's a good thing for gold to go up for us. And I mean, gold is up a tiny bit, percentage wise. Bitcoin's up a shitload percentage wise.
Both
So
technical
I'm
terms.
yeah, so I'm down with it. And I think the gold breakout is probably not going to too much. I don't think we're in the gold season where we're now like now that we're breaking 2K, we're gonna go to 3. I think we're gonna break 2K and then probably gonna go to 2.2 and that's it. Because it's gold and gold sucks. But
Fine. Yeah, that's fair
yeah,
enough. It'd be interesting just to watch how sticky those flows are, right? The sort of risk, the shift from risk asset BTC 500 to more gold like properties. I'm
yeah,
interested to assess the longevity of that and whether we can shake it off in time if risk recovers, because then we should be able to abandon ship and say, nope, just kidding. We're actually the S&P coin because that's up 5% or something. Some musical chairs to be played narratively, I think, as far as macro
yeah.
correlations go. Excellent. Anything else to add as far as chart, TA, whatever stuff?
Not really,
I
no.
think
I
that
don't think
just
there's
about
much
covers it,
interesting.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Cool. Excellent. Let's jump into some news headline things. I haven't got that many, because we covered most of it with USDC stuff, as you can imagine. That was really the big news. There's some other stuff. So, point number one. Instagram NFT initiatives Swift Death mints mourners and Mez. I don't know if you saw this, but Meta said its NFT program will end. And also then, I don't know if this is directly related, but laid off 10,000 employees. Probably not directly related, but I guess just a trend that they're cutting the
Oh,
fat.
jeez.
Yeah, yeah. Well, they're cutting the fat, and it seems like their whole NFT, PFP, Instagram thing just didn't take off in the way that they wanted it to. And it's also just like an easy, non essential thing to bin, right? They kind of, as with a lot of these adoption things, introduced it towards the top and maybe didn't do as well as they thought it might. And we know that NFT volumes in general and NFT interest dried up a lot in the bear market. So this could just be a sort of delayed consequence of that. But yeah, Meta's decision to test an initiative that allowed artists to sell NFTs on Instagram was widely considered a positive development. Now that the tech giant has pulled the plug, Web3 enthusiasts' reaction to the sudden move is all over the place. And you've got some quotes saying, "I was completely baffled." And yeah, so this was less than 5 months after launching the initiative that allowed a select few creators to showcase and sell digital collectibles using Instagram. I guess 1 point down for adoption, as far as that kind of stuff goes, but ultimately not too surprising in these economic conditions. If you were just kind of late adopting some Pico top Web3 trend, and it's not really making money, and you have to fire employees anyway, you kind of get rid of the fat first. And this seems to have just been a casualty of that more than anything else. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, this whole NFT thing you have to kind of raise organically, if that makes
Yes.
any sense. So like them just throwing a bunch of people and a bunch of money on it, kind of reminds me of Coinbase, um, that whole disaster with the NFT trading platform
Yeah.
that had like I don't know like 10 ETH in volume, and they
Oh man.
spent like a couple of million on it.
Yeah, the wait list had like
Um,
10 trillion people on it, and then the launch itself, not so great. Yeah,
yeah,
it's rough.
and they launched it right into the NFT bear market, like very smart. So I think it's just it makes sense. It's not a big loss. I think the whole NFT thing is just if it's gonna catch on relatively organically over time, more so than anything. Like at some point, I think you're gonna get a good game that is using NFTs just on the side, um, and then that gets a little bit popular, and then you get another one, and then you get a couple, and people start kind of realizing that there's something there, and you get like that would be a good angle, I think.
Hmm.
And then you get it more and more on social media and that kind of stuff. It's pretty much, I think they're early and they were too early and they were trying to force it too hard, which honestly seems like something that Meta does a lot.
Yeah.
Um, like trying to push something that isn't quite ready yet. It's the same with VR, right? Like them going into that whole like thing like very very heavily, expecting it to pay off very soon, and then
Yes.
it takes like 10, 15, 20 years, which is like still okay, right? I still think like every time I see decisions by Meta, I'm like, oh, this sounds quite smart, but a little bit early. And I think same with that one. But it's not a big loss. I don't really think we need any of that. So it's quite nice to have it crypto specific more so than yeah coming from the outside.
Yeah, I agree. And crypto is still like building infrastructure that's crypto native for this kind of stuff, right? With Blur and other ways to like trade NFTs. So there's
Yeah.
plenty of progress still being made on the infrastructure front. And so there's nothing to say this stuff can't come back later when they hire a new Web3 guy in another bull market and buy the top on NFTs again. But it's not
Yep.
that seems likely to me. But yeah, crypto in itself is doing a decent job innovating. But yeah, I guess rip Bozo, pack watch, etc., etc. Circle substantially clears backlog of USDC redemptions. It's more or less trading at par now, right? As far as I'm concerned, or as far as I'm
Yeah,
aware,
yeah.
USDC, and they obviously had a backlog of redemptions because all this stuff happened over the weekend, and there was still a lot of fear as things opened up. But all in all, given there's like literally a banking sector crisis and Signature Bank got shut down and there's some sort of shady repercussions going on there in terms of why exactly that was the case and whether they just yeeted the crypto part out of it without there being a sort of clear reason for it. All in all, given the amount of distress in the banking sector, I mean, that's pretty impressive from Circle, right? Sort of
I agree. Yes.
survive the depeg, clear it up pretty well, and then sort of on the open tell everyone they're going to have full access to their funds and be able to absorb the amount of redemptions and trade at par pretty much as soon as the banks open. I mean, as far as crises go, I'm sure there's going to be a loss of confidence in general, at least for some time. But as far as crises go, I think that's handled quite well, all things considered. I mean, we've seen worse things that are supposed to be a dollar not really make their way back. So
Yes.
I think it's fine, kind of impressive. Unfortunate, obviously, but all in all, well handled given the amount of distress and the circumstances. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, they basically went from like 41 billion to almost 30 billion. That's a huge drop. Um, and they did it in no time whatsoever if you just kind of look at the market cap of it. And doesn't look like they've been in any big trouble on that front because people were worried about the 8% that were missing, right? And technically they had to sell like 25 now, and seem good on that front. So very, very impressive and very good. I think it's just um, there's obviously gonna be. I think it's gonna keep bleeding. People are kind of spooked, which is very unfortunate for Circle, right? Because at the end of the day, they didn't really do anything wrong per se. They just got caught up in a shitty situation, and this is gonna make Tether even stronger. And I think that's not necessarily the best, because you do want to have a couple actually legit stable coins. You don't only want to have Tether. That makes me nervous. It's like the whole main character arc again. You don't want to have a main character like this. Is you want to have a bunch of them, right? You don't want to have anyone dominating. It's the same problem with Binance right now. It's too big. You need more, and I hope USDC doesn't continue bleeding out. Then again, I don't hold any anymore because I took the trade, and at some point I was like, okay, this is close enough, and then exchanged it back
To
into.
USDT, which is Justin Sun's stablecoin, right? The real Lindy one.
Oh yeah, I'm shocked anyone's holding that, but
Fair
yeah,
enough. Yeah, and also like we mentioned that they kind of got caught up in a rough thing. Considering how quickly they responded, it says in this article, after finding itself largely bankless in the US after the high-profile collapses of Silvergate, Silicon Valley Bank, and Signature Bank. Isn't that insane? They basically got rugged on like 3 banks within a
yep.
week, and then still managed to absorb all of this and get over it pretty much as soon as wires opened on Monday. That war room must have been crazy. I would have loved to have been a fly on the wall there as they were
Oh yeah.
discussing things. So yeah, I mean,
And
kudos.
the funniest thing about this whole situation is that like Paolo, right, the CEO of Bitfinex, kind of like that has a lot of steer over Twitter. Not Twitter. What am I saying? Over Tether. Um, well, how he was like tweeting, "We don't have exposure to this. We don't have exposure to that," and you're like wondering where the fuck do they actually have exposure to?
Yeah, it's like all
Uh,
offshore, right? Presumably, because these are
yeah.
U.S. banks. So yeah, I'm guessing that's where it is. But yeah, it's like Neo in the Matrix dodging all these blowups. It's quite funny.
Yeah.
So Don, I mean, this is the way they handled it is quite bullish USDC. Do you think it can go to $1.20 as a breakout target above $1? I mean, TA works for everything, right?
Oh, I was actually like, I wasn't sure if it was gonna squeeze because a bunch of apes just shorted this thing. Like
Oh,
I looked at the Bybit OI when I was trading it, right, and it was trading at 0.9. It was like the OI of that contract alone only on Bybit was like 260 million.
Oh my
So
god.
like, I mean, there was just like a bunch of people getting completely giga wrecked, and they kept on holding too. Like, I still like the OI was still huge when it was trading at 0.97. So I don't know how it is right now because I've not been. That trade is done for me, but it must still be like I still think there's heightened trading interest in that thing, which is quite funny to me. Um,
Yeah. Weekend trading stable coins over banking blow up contagion fears. Where else? What other market can you do this?
yes,
Um,
and I was like hoping that those like that open interest would get liquidated, and we would actually get like USDC just pumped to 1.1 or something, but never happened. And I don't think that's a risk anymore,
a risk.
specifically.
Yeah, fair enough. Gensler suggests proof of stake tokens are securities. I'm so tired of this dude.
Oh, it just
And
needs
just
to
his
get
name in general.
away.
Like, you've just done a bad job fundamentally. I'm not interested. And
You know.
I'm not going to go through this entire article. It's just answering more questions and thinking about his framework. But it's basically a follow-up of what we discussed last week, where you have sort of the SEC and certain sort of attorney generals make arguments as to how they think these things should be classified, and then you have the CFTC fighting for jurisdiction, if you will, over are these securities or are they commodities, and so on and so forth. I just think that regulatory agencies as a whole, and I think this is the job of the legislature, like Congress, you should acknowledge this clusterfuck. You have a very important sort of, well, not important, I guess, in the grand scheme of things. But yeah, you have this asset class which is subject to a lot of litigation. You're pushing away companies from the US because of that failed or lack of adherence to regulation, in your view. But then when you look around, you can't even classify the biggest protocols and set some basic ground rules for people to even consider whether to go offshore or try to be sort of US native and stay here, right? Like, you
Yep.
can't complain that there's like a large amount of recalcitrance, I think that's a word, or like a low rate of law following when you don't provide a clear framework in the first place. It's like, you're not going to tell me the rules, but you're going to punish me for breaking them, having not told me those rules. It's just absurd and
Yeah.
annoying at this point. And I think it's on Congress to just sit there, slap it. This is a security. This is a commodity. This is managed by the CFTC. This is the SEC. Just make it make sense. Surely our lobbyists can push harder.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's just stupid, and it's led to a lot of damage too. It's not like they're protecting anyone. It's just they're damaging um, a lot of people. Because at the end of the day, like if you cannot do stuff legally in the US, you're either gonna go elsewhere, and then it's not gonna be over the like under the oversight. You're just gonna do it like YOLO style, basically. Already breaking the law of the US, so might as well. Or you're just not gonna do it at all, and then someone else is gonna do something that's way way shadier somewhere else. And this is what we've been seeing pretty much everywhere. That basically these offshore companies get bigger and bigger and bigger because for them it's really easy, right? They don't have to spend millions or even more in legal fees just trying to understand the rules because they just don't give a fuck about the rules. And then you have a
Yes.
competitive advantage, right? Like the people that are trying to run this legit, they cannot compete because it's just so expensive. Um, and That's obviously led to a lot of damage. And I think that's something that should be discussed because it's just not okay. Like you kind of push legit businesses out of the way, and there were a lot of American focused businesses that went out of business, right? And they were running things like properly, and then you have like shitty ones pop up left, right, and center all over the world, and they scam customers, and then the U.S. government is like, well, we told you, and it's it's not how things work, right? If you make sure that the legit actors cannot act, well, obviously everyone that's left is gonna be like a scammer, right? And it's just it's an embarrassment, I think, and it's very sad to see.
Yeah,
It needs to
agreed.
stop.
Agreed. So let's hope our lobbyists, the devs need to do something, but so do the lobbyists at this point. And I'm so tired of talking
Yeah.
about this issue because it's like every time there's regulatory news, it's the same annoyance, right?
Yes.
So who knows how long this stuff will take? And if anything, it's just been getting worse, to be honest, and which isn't ultimately surprising after how last year transpired. It's kind of a weird causal chain, whereas like a lot of this stuff happens because of the offshoring sort of mechanism that you spoke about, and then it blows up, and that just leads to harsher and more restrictive regulation, even though it was caused by a lack of clear regulation in the first place, at least tangentially. So it's entirely circular. Anyway, fuck it.
Yeah.
Binance converting $1 billion in BUSD to Bitcoin, Ether, and BNB. Presumably, this is going to be like, what, 98% BNB and then 1%
Yep.
BTC, 1% ETH? I mean, you know what? Like, this is a bit of a Chad move, it feels like, at least ideologically, right? Like, I know people are going to start making sort of analogies like, oh, this is just like when Terra was buying BTC and so on and so forth. I don't think that's necessarily a useful comparison. But CZ is basically saying, look, if you're going to shut down BUSD, if we can't play stable coin games, then no one can. Fuck it. You know, we'll just go back to tradition. We're going to trade a bunch of crypto and buy a bunch of crypto and hold that instead of the stable coins. And that announcement came at a pretty good price compared to where the market is now. And I don't think there's a need to get conspiratorial here, like, oh, it's causing the pump, this and that and the other. But you know, when we used to trade back in the day, it was alt BTC pairs and it was all sort of crypto to crypto type of stuff. Stablecoins led to a proliferation of a large number of products we enjoy today, like linear futures, which make it easy to calculate your P&L and trade in general and manage your overall exposure, specifically delta, to the underlying market. But now with the stablecoin crackdown, I mean, there are still good options. They're certainly not making it easy, and there could be more regulation coming down the line. But you know, this is quite a logical move from Binance's point of view. I know they're sort of flirting with some other stable coins and some announcements today. I think it was like not True USD. There's some stable coin stuff going on that I didn't fully research. But generally speaking, sort of despite the large size of the ticket, it's sort of logically coherent to argue that if you're gonna strangle banks, and if you're going to strangle stablecoins, well, then we have crypto. So that's where we're going to put this recovery fund and that money. I didn't find it entirely offensive. What do you think?
Yeah, I think I agree on, like, it's a really tough one because
Yes.
I don't think it really, like, if CZ buys a shitload of BUSD, not BUSD, BNB for a recovery fund for, like, if something goes wrong. I mean, BNB is gonna crash if something goes wrong with Binance, right?
Or if they need to use the
So
recovery fund, yeah, you're going to have to sell that crypto,
yes,
sure.
so it's kind of nice to have like Tether or like a stable coin, because that's not going to do anything, right? But if they have to start selling crypto when something goes poorly, because if something goes poorly, crypto is going to go down. So it's kind of this shitty situation where the recovery fund is basically just good to pump stuff and
I'll
not
fix
good
it.
with
Let me dump.
it's like, yeah, exactly, that's
Oh,
the
that's
big
funny.
problem.
Yeah.
Because I mean, at the end of the day, like, liquidity is going to disappear the moment you know that Binance or like the market, like anything is in trouble. You know that you're going to get dumped on, so you're going to dump your shit, and then the market
That's
is in
really
deeper
funny.
trouble.
Yeah, yeah.
Which, I mean, is not really the best thing in the
Oh, that's
world.
good. I mean, again, I appreciate it ideologically. Like, we don't need your USD. We have crypto. That's the whole point of crypto. You know, sending that
Yes.
message. But mechanistically, it's quite funny. They're like, "Oh, there's distress. Let me recover this very quickly by like dumping my coins." I was actually shit
Yes.
posting in a group chat about this. Where people are like, "Oh, look, it's a 1 billion buyer," and I replied saying, "All I see is a future 1 billion seller." So that sort
Yep.
of speaks to that, which is quite funny. But anyway, respect for the move. Hopefully,
Yeah.
the way
I'm
it's
not hating.
deployed is considerate. Let's go with that.
Hmm.
And our final bit of news is the following: Coinbase's proposed overseas trading venue would offer derivatives, according to sources. The exchange is looking to go abroad amid US regulatory uncertainty, and crypto exchange Coinbase is exploring launching an offshore platform to trade perpetual swaps tied to cryptocurrency, according to two sources familiar with the firm's aspirations to gate crash a sector dominated by rival Binance. I actually don't even know how this would work for a US regulated company to have an offshore arm kind of offering this stuff. I'm sure there's someone intelligent who understands company law who can answer that question. Do you trust Coinbase to have good perps? I guess is the first question. Because you know the product launches have been quite hit and miss, or hit or miss. I don't really know what the correct idiom is there.
They've just been misses.
Yeah,
Anyway.
well, yeah. But I mean, this is part of a broader move. Again, even the article cites it, the U.S. regulatory uncertainty. So that regulatory regime and the lack of clarity therein, just the exact cause and effect we
Again,
spoke about.
yes.
Yeah, just pushing even U.S. companies away, which sucks, and gives those gives that money and that GDP boost to other jurisdictions. But I think in general, it's good for Binance to have competition because
I agree.
monopolies aren't good. Even if you think that the incumbent is in a good position, more competition will only make them stronger in theory, right? If you
Yeah.
buy this childhood fantasy version of capitalism, but I'm not going to get into it. I mean, I'm excited for this news. I'll say that much. I hope it goes well. I hope there's a real competitor and they can make a dent in the monopoly. I'm just not sure. First of all, I think this will take a while to come to the market. Coinbase isn't super. I mean, this takes a while, and Coinbase isn't super fast. This is the first rumbling we're hearing about it, but I really hope it doesn't suck. What do you reckon?
Yeah, I would love that. Like, I mean, we need more competitors, and we need competitors that have a little bit of trust because it's really hard to, especially derivatives platforms, right? It's really hard to trust them, honestly. Like, it's always, I always, whenever I used them, I felt unsafe. I mean, with BitMEX, I was like, this is a bit scary. Then even with Binance, like they did some stuff where I was like, I don't like this. So the Coinbase has a good reputation, and I don't think they would want to kind of sully it. They would stay clean. So I think I trust them in that regard. I wouldn't trust them to deliver a good product, but I would trust them to at least not willingly fuck me over. So yeah, I would like that. I want more competition to Binance and the other derivatives platforms. The more, the better. For us customers, I don't think the more the better for those companies, but the more the better for us customers for sure.
Agreed. So we'll see where that goes. At least if they can beat their NFT platform, they'd be off to a good start. That's where the
Just
bar is
needs
set.
one trader. They just need one trader for that.
I'll do it. Yeah. The firm has briefed market making and trading firms about the plans to roll out the platform in an offshore jurisdiction. Yeah. Okay. So we'll see what happens.
Mhm.
Also, this article says they provide a more capital efficient way for traders to make bets on the underlying crypto market. The capital efficient, it just means getting levered to the tits when I want my portfolio to be 100 times bigger than it is in reality, which is how 99% of people use leverage. So
Oh
I'm
yeah,
sure
it's
there'll be
horrendous.
no exceptions there. Don, that's been our hour. Any final notes, questions, concerns, complaints? What are you up to? Are you taking a break after the crazy week you've had?
Oh yeah, I mean we're basically on holiday right now.
Nice.
This is live from an Airbnb.
Hmm.
So, um, but yeah, I'm gonna take it easy. I'll try to anyway next week, and yeah, I'll see if the market lets me. I hope it does. But also, I wouldn't mind if it just goes straight up. It's like this weird thing where I'd be happy if it goes straight up because I'm gonna make money, but I'm also gonna be a little bit sad because I'm gonna make less money than I could. So like, I don't know. I don't know where I want this thing to go. As long as it isn't going to zero, I'm happy with it though.
There you go. That's I think we can manage that. That's all from us. Thank you for your support on Casual Friday. We really mean it. It's our most popular show, and we're glad people tune in and listen and enjoy it. If you are one of those people, leave a like on the video, leave us a comment, and have a wonderful weekend. We'll be back next week for our normal deluge of content. Don, thanks, and we'll see you all next week.
Bye bye.